Breaking news, new details on the shocking upside-down plane crash in Toronto. Airport officials just announcing at a press conference no one was critically injured, which is a little different from what we heard before, and that is improved news. All 80 people on board survived.
On February 17th, 2025, Delta Connection Flight 4819, a Bombardier CRJ900, departed Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport, bound for Toronto Pearson International Airport. The flight was uneventful until its final approach to Toronto, where adverse weather conditions posed significant challenges. As the aircraft descended, Toronto Pearson Airport was grappling with the aftermath of a recent snowstorm. The runways were covered with snow, and gusty winds reaching speeds of up to 51 km/h, 32 mph, compounded the difficulties. Temperatures hovered around 8.6 degrees, 16.5 degrees, creating a treacherous environment for landing. Witnesses described the landing as turbulent. John Nelson, a passenger on the flight, recounted the experience, noting that the plane hit the ground super hard and went sideways before flipping over.
Let's go right now to John Nelson. He was a passenger on the plane. John, thank you so much for being with us. We're so glad you're okay. I mean, who would have known that you were in a plane crash a few hours ago? It's unbelievable. You have video that you recorded. We've been watching. Tell us when you first realized something was the matter.
Yeah, it was a typical flight from Minneapolis to Toronto. And we were coming in, and I did notice that the winds were super gusty. The snow had kind of blown over the runways. And so coming in, it just, it was routine, but it was noticeable that the runways were kind of in a weird condition. And when we hit, it was just a super hard, I hit the ground and the plane went sideways. And I believe we skidded on our side and then flipped over on our back. Where we ended up, there was a big fireball out the left side of the plane. And when we got finished, it was I was upside down. Everybody else was there as well. Thankfully, everybody was okay. But we tried to get out of there as quickly as possible. And then shortly thereafter, I got done filming the video. There was another explosion, but luckily the firefighters got out of there.
Miraculously, all 80 individuals on board, 76 passengers and 4 crew members, survived the ordeal. However, 18 passengers sustained injuries, with 3 initially reported as critical. Fortunately, these injuries were later deemed non-critical.
So this is a Delta feeder jet. It's not a mainline jet, but Minneapolis, as you know, is one of the major centers for Delta. Toronto is the major hub in Canada. It was on its way in. It was completely full. It's got 76 seats on that plane, two people in the cockpit, a pilot and a co-pilot, and 2 crew. So that was a full complement, which is typical of planes coming into Toronto. The issue is the weather in Toronto has been very bad. It's had 2 back-to-back storms, 3+ feet of snow on the ground. I mean, I've had family sending me pictures for the last several days of just snow, which Canadians don't do because they're used to snow. Plane came in, the landing speed's about 150 miles an hour, so think about that. Plane seems to get to the ground at 150 miles an hour. Now, if it flips over at 150 miles an hour, it probably wouldn't look the way it looks right now. It would probably be destroyed. So something happened. The pilots figured out something. The plane then seems to have flipped over. Now, what we don't see is landing gear, so we don't know whether the landing gear failed, the landing gear broke, the landing gear wasn't open, or could it be that the winds are very high? The plane could have caught some wind as it was landing. The snow, the banks along the runways have been cleared, but the banks along the runways have a lot of snow. So that sometimes happens. You hit some snow and then you go over, or snow blows onto the runway and becomes ice. The plane gets to the ground. Most people get off. There are 9 injured. Some of those injuries are supposedly to do with the weather because it's -4 degrees Fahrenheit in Toronto. But the 2 who have been sent to hospital, one is a child by land ambulance. There are very, very good children's hospitals in Toronto. It's a children's hospital center, really, for Canada. The other one was medevac to a trauma center. Again, that's because Toronto is a very heavily trafficked city. It's got excellent trauma hospitals, but it would be more standard to put somebody on a helicopter and in 5 minutes be at a trauma center. So that's what we're looking at right now. We are told that the critical injury is not life-threatening, which is great news if true, but amazing to look at these pictures, to see an upside-down plane on a runway, a jet, and understand that maybe 9 people are injured, and we're hoping it's not more than that. A lot of questions. The airport's closed right now. There were winds gusting up to 27 miles per hour, which would be entirely manageable for a CRJ900 like that. That would not be winds that would necessarily cause it to flip. And the kinds of planes I flew, if you had 27 mile per hour gusts, I wouldn't fly. But that's not in and of itself the danger. Whether the wind caught it and the wing caught some snow, or there was ice on the runway, it might be in concert with other things that the wind was a factor. But the weather is definitely a factor there. There's a lot of snow, to the extent that even the city of Toronto has said it might take weeks to get that city cleared of the snow that it's got right now. So the weather is probably the most likely factor at the moment.
What the plane was facing, this aircraft, I was on one of these same ones going into LaGuardia, and so I happened to look up the limitations. The crosswind limitation on landing is 35 knots. If the runway is dry and clear and clean braking action, if you don't have good brake on ice on the runway, your crosswind limitation is 15 knots. If they had enough to get down and they were coming into land, they could have been in the right, but at the last minute it got a bad gust that upended them. And I've had that happen to me when I'm flying, and it's terrifying. I literally had the plane sit up on one wingtip. Now, I was lucky. It didn't catch the wingtip, but if that happened right as they hit the runway, even if they were within their aircraft limits, there wouldn't be much they could do about it except try to fly out of it.
Emergency response teams, including fire engines, paramedics, and police, were quick to arrive at the scene. Their swift actions were instrumental in evacuating the passengers and extinguishing the flames that had erupted upon impact. The incident has prompted investigations by both U.S. and Canadian transportation authorities to determine the exact cause of the crash. Preliminary reports suggest that the combination of snowy conditions and strong winds may have contributed to the accident. This event serves as a stark reminder of the unpredictable nature of aviation and the critical importance of rigorous safety protocols. The resilience of the passengers and the professionalism of the crew and emergency responders were pivotal in ensuring that what could have been a tragedy resulted in a remarkable survival story.